Welcome to Home's Room. Just like Homeroom, we start off our day getting together with our homies, swapping stories, even a little kiss and tell action. This podcast contains language not suitable for younger listeners, topics about sex and mental health. Discretion is advised. Our views are our own. Let class begin. So, I'm here with my buddy Caitlin, and it's kind of late at night. You know, we're just shooting the shit outside, and we suddenly hear, the sound of swooshing, kind of like a broom on a floor. Oh, and it's 1942. And then somebody yells out, "Not Toxa!" And that translates into Night Witch. And bombs start to fall on us. Crazy setup, right? What's up, Caitlin?
Homie, that might be the craziest, like the most appropriate and awesome, amazing episode intro that we've ever recorded in our over 100 episodes of the Home Through podcast. That just made me way extra pumped.
Yeah, good. So what Night Toxa translates to, like I said, is night witches, and we're doing in my opinion, like OG boss babe kind of thing. And yes, this is about a group of Soviet women pilots, and yes, Russia is what it is right now. However, at this point in time in history, they were on the right side of things, trying to do the right thing and fighting Nazis. And if you're not fighting Nazis, I think you're doing the wrong thing. So we have like a history lesson for you today, I guess, if that's what we're going to call it. So Caitlin, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear Night Witch? Like, what is the picture you paint? It doesn't have to be like what you know about this episode, but just when I said, hey, let's do an episode on the Night Witches, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
What immediately jumps to mind is like a lunar witch, like a group of lunar witches hanging out in beautiful flowing nightgowns around a fucking bonfire or something. But knowing what I know and how you very limited prep me for this episode, treat every day like it's Home's Room, like we have something new to learn. And I'm just super pumped that you're educating me and the rest of us homies about something, and it's not me educating you about a garbage TikTok trend.
Yeah, that is true. This is different. It is a role reversal situation. So I will say this all came about because of a random Facebook post that was like, in World War II, there was a group of women pilots, and they were called the Night Witches, and it looked really like AI generated. And I was like, I don't know if this is real. Let me go search it. And then I found out that it was real. And then I fell down a rabbit hole of like, what? Huh? And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to look and see if there's any books about them. And I found a book that I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, these are OG boss babes, and it's the summer and we do a boss babe series. So I thought we're going to do that. And your description of what you think of when you think of Night Witch isn't far off of what the situation was. Only instead of flowy dresses, it was oversized coveralls from hand-me-downs from male pilots. And instead of a bonfire, it was the fiery wreckage of the bombs they dropped. So, there's that. I think, with this episode and with what we're talking about today, you got to get your thinking cap on and just like appreciate the information, and then go do some research on your own and like actually see what these women were about. And, when it comes to like the situation of when this was going on, it was started in like the winter of 1941 is when the women trained. But before that, what even started this, I guess, like initiative, there was a battle or a fight called Operation Barbarossa in 1941, and Hitler launched an offensive on the Eastern Front and German soldiers forced their way almost all the way to Moscow. And at that point, Russia was like, no, this, we cannot let this happen. And Stalin got super paranoid, was ultra concerned about the next attack and where it was going to come from and what was going to happen, that it became all hands on deck. And one thing that I found ultra interesting about the Night Witches and these women pilots was, in Russia at that time, Russian women enjoyed more freedoms than any other place in the world.
Huh?
Did not see that coming. There's a whole list of reasons why, because they had in 1917 like a regime change and laws and things like that that gave women more freedom. And these women were physicists, these women were chemists, were like all sorts of crazy things before this pilot thing happened. And it just became a way for them to give something to the war effort. And I think that when all other women in World War II, the war effort for them was like, the same jobs that they would be able to get on the home front, but like just in a military thing. Like they could drive people places, they could cook, they could be a nurse, they could deliver things. These women were in actual combat, doing things, fighting, and I think that that's awesome. And that's what like sparked the, oh man, we gotta like do this. Like this has to be an episode because it's so cool. But in Operation Barbarossa, the battle costs 3 million, or sorry, Hitler sent 3 million soldiers into Russia. That's a lot of numbers, and that's why Stalin was like, damn, we're outnumbered. This is an all hands on deck situation. And he became paranoid, like I said, and he enlisted anyone and everyone he could, and that even included women. During this time, there was women's sniper regiments, which is wild to think about because you wouldn't know. And one of the most famous Russian snipers was Lady Death, and that was of note in all of this Night Witch, I guess, mystique, because it was just German soldiers were absolutely not okay with the fact that women were standing up doing something, because that's absolutely not what it is. And thus the name Night Witch was born, because that's what it is they wanted people to understand how deadly these women were, and also be afraid of what was happening, and be ultimately, fraught with, this is a dangerous situation, don't underestimate them. So history of the Night Witches, there was 3 regiments, the 586th Fighter Group, the 587th Dive Bomber Group, and the 588th, which were the Night Witches. They were the Night Bombers, and they were between the ages of 17 and 26.
Dude, freaking love that. Oh my gosh. That's insane. That? Yeah, no, I mean, yeah. I wouldn't expect that young, but I also think, like, one thing that boggles my mind around anything history-wise specific with World War II is how old a younger age was. Like the level of maturity, the level of literacy. If you read any letters of young soldiers around then, you're like, oh damn, like you're an eloquent motherfucker. Like, I think 17 was definitely not on my bingo card to be that young, but
yeah.
But also I would love to fuck some shit up as a fighter pilot at 17.
Right, exactly. So who they were is female Russian pilots. They were young and talented, would do anything to the extent of, taking a bullet self-inflicted rather than be captured, because they knew what would wait for them should they be captured. They had pride and enjoyed freedom in their country and did not want that imposed on by Nazis. The 588th, like I said, is the Night Witches, the Night Bombers. That's who we're going to focus on. But the entire operation and arm of this military was created by Marina Raskova, and she died, unfortunately, in a plane crash in 1943. All of her crew was also killed in that crash, but that was her second crash. She survived the first one for near 2 weeks on her own in the Siberian tundra. So like legit was a badass pilot. Before she got into the war, she actually ran a flight school, and most of the women that came into this program were former students or students of hers. So that's pretty awesome. When she got started with this, obviously the first couple times it was met with a maybe not. I don't think, we'll see. We'll back burner this. And she started carrying around hundreds of letters that she collected from women saying, we want to fight. So every time she went and had a conversation with somebody, she had these letters to draw inspiration from, to say, this is why this needs to happen. And I think that's boss babe, like, by itself, going into these conversations with men and being like, no, there's not just me. There's everybody. These people want to do this. And like I said, she was like a chemist before that. And like, so it's like, yeah, okay, you are absolutely like boss babe level. Like, I don't know what to say. And I was like, damn, this lady is the one that, like, she did all this other shit and then led that. What does that do for you? Like, knowing that she's survived one plane crash, she created this organization and was a chemist before all of that, and trained these pilots before they were in combat situations.
Initial thought is that the digital age has thinned my fucking blood, because I can barely stand existing in my own home in cold weather, let alone 2 weeks in the Serbian tundra. Are you shitting me? Holy crap. Yeah. And she was, okay, so she was, here are a few things that I'm going to hypothesize about who she was as a person and her character. She was a chemist, so we know she's smart as shit. Okay. Mm-hmm. In her recreation time, while she's being a chemist, she runs a flight school. But what also, I believe, she had hundreds of letters from other women, and former students came out of the woodworks to come and join her mission. She raised the bat signal. She had a village of other women who appreciated mentorship and saw her as an actual leader. I believe we can probably hypothesize that she was a leader, not a manager.
Yeah.
So she's broad-shouldered, but she's not going to ask anybody to do anything that she's not willing to do, vis-a-vis her fucking creds as a badass. Holy shit. And also, what a very unique way to appeal to people's emotions is to just like have on deck with you. Hear letters of other women who are like, yeah, I'm a woman, but also I know I can contribute to the mission right now. I love my country. I love my family. I want to fight. Let us fight.
I left out a fact about that plane crash that she survived. It was trying to set a record.
Cool.
She was trying to set a record for the flight. So
badass.
Yeah, like I said, just ridiculous. She created this program, and it started out with 400 women. And they were divided up into those three regiments: the 586th, the 587th, and the 588th. The 588th is such a cool organization as its own little thing comparatively to the other ones. They all did different things, and they all have like crazy history about them. But another member of the 588th is Yevdokia Raskovich, and she's also one of those just like effortless leader, and wanted to do all of the things that the men were doing, and wasn't gonna back down from any of the challenges. And I think that's like just in itself like what embodies boss babe, right? She flew 36 missions. She died at the age of 75. So like she lived a long life after the war. So like that in itself is just cool. She was the first woman to be awarded with the Order of Savage. I don't know how to. It's a Russian word, so I don't know what it means.
That's all right.
For her outstanding military leadership. Um, before the war, she had 10 years of experience as a pilot. So like legit, like was already a badass coming in, and people flocked to follow her. And she led the 588th or the Night Witches. So that's, again, another badass person that's just like, okay, yeah, yep, these people, I'm feeling it. How about you? Are you feeling it? Are you getting jazzed
Well, of
about all this?
course. But I also know just sociology in general. The fact that they are Soviet, like they had such a different upbringing and experienced such a different culture too, that there's literally nothing in our country that we probably can draw parallel wise to even try to relate to their upbringing during that day and age that lent itself into, oh, I'm going to be a chemist. Oh, I'm going to fly all like 36 fucking missions and then live to the ripe age of 75 with all my world experience.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So the 588th was attributed with thousands of missions or mission kills and victories from like, seemingly impossible odds. And I think that in itself is cool. They created tactics. There was things that like they outsmarted people doing. And I think in itself, like that thing is pretty awesome. One of your questions, I said, hey, do you have any questions? And you're like, I don't know anything about them. I was like, that's the point. So one of your questions was, how many women were there, and 400. They started out with welcoming 400 women into the program. And when they joined this program, they had clothes that didn't fit. They had planes that were training planes and hand-me-downs, things that were barely what you would expect to see. Canvas covered biplanes. So like legitimately like World War I era kind of equipment in World War II. And they spent, how long would you think a regular like military training for like combat pilot, how long do you think that would normally take?
Shit. Well, really, the only thing I have to educate my answer is the fact that I've watched Top Gun many moons ago. And that's probably not very true. I would say at least 4 months, but knowing that so many of the pilots were former students of the founders, maybe shorter.
So one of the things that they had to do was when they got selected, they started training in the winter of 41 to be ready to fight in the spring of 42.
Okay.
So that in itself is already like super tight turnaround. And usually that training is mapped in years, not months. So they did what most people do in years in months. And I think that in itself is already like, hell yeah, you guys, like, that's fucking awesome. They would fly multiple missions a night with a quick turnaround. So they had to learn to be efficient with their ground crews, with their, with every aspect of their mission had to be do it, come back, reload, go back out, do another mission. And you might ask, what were those missions, right? That was another one of your questions, is what were their missions? So they specifically targeted German encampments, other similar sized targets, vehicles, and this is where their tactics kind of come in. And I'm a geek for tactics. So they would fly in groups of 3. First 2 planes would come in and they glide in. They shut off their engines. So they're making no sound. The only sound you hear is the wind whipping across their canvas biplanes, which is what gives them that eerie night witch broomstick flying sound. And these first 2 planes come in. The men see them. They start shooting. Those planes are just a distraction to find the cluster of men to drop bombs on then thereafter.
So they give away their position.
So the third plane would come in and then drop the bombs. And they flew in twos. So there was a navigator and a pilot, and the navigator would navigate them to their targets, then identify the target. The pilot would shut the plane off or throttle down, so they were in a glide, and then the navigator would then drop bombs. Pilot would throttle back up, get them back to safety, and then they'd do it all over again. What do you think, Boss Babe level or what?
Dude, that's so elite. Oh my God.
That's what I was like, that tactic in itself is just like, okay, cool.
Well, now you're kind of like, you're a tactic nerd. I'm an intel nerd. Yeah. So I want to know, like, more specifically, how did they identify some of these targets? But how did they know that those targets were going to be there still? Like, obviously, an encampment, that one's depending on the infantry unit or the mobility of said unit. It may be there for just a couple of days and then pack up, move on to the next site.
That's why they struck at night when people weren't moving, so that they had the ability to run these missions in the cover of darkness and when people were least expecting, because at that time people didn't, like, other pilots, male pilots in World War II, especially RAF pilots and bombers, they would fly at night because it was safer, but they would miss their target often because they were flying at night and couldn't identify it. So that same level of intel, same level of expected, I guess, hindrance in their mission, these women were overcoming that and continuously being successful. And I think that the fact that, like, a navigator had all of the weight on a pilot at that point is just getting you there, getting back. The navigator had so much, so they trained these women to do everything that the men were doing, and they had to do it well. And another question you asked that is, like, kind of fits perfectly into this part of the conversation is, were there other women groups like this in other countries? And in Europe, there were a couple, but I couldn't find any definitive, like, who they were or what they did. The only thing that I could specifically find was there was an American group of pilots. What do you think these American women were allowed to do in the war as far as piloting?
Move bandages.
Yeah. So they were only ferries. They would fly military aircraft, and they did fly all of, like, almost every type of military aircraft from one place to another to get them to where they were. And they would fly in training scenarios and training planes to test them as test pilots. And those women welcomed, even though it wasn't a combat role, they welcomed those things because they knew they were freeing up men to go fight. Yep. So even though it might seem a little lackluster compared to what the Night Witches were doing, these women were still doing it. In 1938, Roosevelt authorized a program of 1,100 women. They didn't, like I said, they didn't fly in combat, but they did fly every type of military aircraft. They were known as WASPs, or Women's Air Force Service Pilots, after 43. Before that, they were split in, like, 3 different things, so they all had their own acronyms, but primarily, like, what they became was WASPs. They probably ferried as much as 80% of the planes moved back and forth and around. So that's pretty, I mean, like, they did do a lot. It just wasn't necessarily the same level of, like, combat experience. Yeah. So when you think about a female pilot, what do you think that pilot is? And it's hand-me-down uniforms. What do you think those women interacted with the male side, like, especially towards the beginning?
Well, of course they were not taken seriously. Of course they were treated as the underdog, which women, historically, we love being treated like an underdog, because of course you're going to, I'm sure, as strategic and tactical as you are, as you're educating us about these women, that they would use some of that shit to their advantage. Yeah. But like the one thing that keeps ruminating in my brain over and over again as you're sitting here talking about their missions and their bombing and all this other stuff is like that wonderful saying that other women have said before me, which is like, anything you can do, I can do bleeding. You know, those women were dropping bombs while they were having fucking period cramps.
Yeah,
Come on.
Get out of here. And I think that's one of the things that's super interesting of note. And I will let you know what the book is at the end of the episode. But of note from one of the books that I read is that the living conditions where they were deplorable and hygiene was almost non-existent. So they were probably doing all of that while trying to manufacture whatever they needed to do. So yes, they did, and face the expected disapproval from male counterparts, and even had their old hand-me-down uniforms that didn't fit the smaller build of a woman, which is annoying. The men took to calling them the skirt regiment and or little girls. So faced all of it, but in the face of that, they just wanted to fight, and I think that that's indicative of how women are treated in any fight, but especially at that time. And then they started to prove people wrong and earn the respect that they deserved. And some of the units actually started to go mixed gender because they earned the respect to be flying alongside men, and men were like, all right, let's go do it. I think that one of the biggest things that stuck out to me was like they were given these like test planes, these planes that like are hand-me-downs, canvas. Like I said, they learned how to glide these planes because they would often shut down while flying, so they had to learn how to glide them in to avoid crashing. So what would be seen by most as a fuck this is stupid, they incorporated into their tactics. Learning how to glide a plane became part of their tactic, and they learned it by the shitty equipment that they were given to do this. That's so fucking cool.
Adapt, improvise, overcome.
So if you were a pilot at that time, what are like 3 things for your safety that you would have with you?
Pocket knife?
Well, let me rephrase. Obviously, like you're a pilot, so you're not worried about the ground. You're worried about the air.
So my brother's in the Air Force.
Or combat in the air.
He's historically been like, he used to manage a shop at Whiteman Air Force Base here in the Midwest, and he was talking about the survival. So that's where my answer comes from. Is
but this is also World War II. You're a woman, not given much equipment, and
oh shit,
and you're not. I've already told you they didn't want to be captured, so the pocket knife. It was So like, I get where you were going, but remember the situation that they're in, not the situation that you specifically are in.
A gun, a cyanide pill. Like there's a reason why some women in zombie apocalypse tropes are like, nah, I'm out.
Yeah. So the thing you didn't mention is a parachute.
Well, yeah, that too.
They didn't mention it either. They flew without parachutes because they got so good at being able to fly the planes that crashing wasn't necessarily a thing. And even if they did crash, they'd rather die than be captured. So saving weight by not carrying, they could carry more bombs is why they didn't fly with parachutes, because more bombs meant they could do more damage. And if they went down, the parachute was a target, not a help.
Holy shit, dude.
Right?
That Crazy. Is so insane.
Right? Like I said, it was nuts. So getting back to the Night Witch and where it came from, the women at that time in Russia were just different because of the end of imperial rule, like I said, in 1917, and the changes supported women. So the Germans viewed women in general just flat out different than Russia. So that is what spurred part of the animosity between the two forces, is seeing women fight alongside Russian men. The Germans were more irritated,
Mm-hmm.
and then being bested by some of the women pissed them off even more. And the women were executing their missions, bombing these places. The Germans got scared because they didn't know when these attacks were coming. It was nighttime, often probably sleeping, and you just hear, and that's all you get. And then somebody yells, Night Witch. And they wanted them to be the boogeyman. They wanted the camp to know that these women are scary. And would you imagine the women were mixed about being called night witches? Some of them were like, whatever. And some of them were like, fuck yeah. Some of them
Hell
were
yeah.
I think it's derogatory. I don't like it.
Well, I think that some of these, like, sometimes the mystique behind the brand, even if it's this thrust upon you, they probably didn't, obviously they didn't choose to be called night witches. Some of them were probably super pumped about it, but like the mystique around it, the rumors, the myths, the legends probably lent itself so much to, that level of fear within the German soldiers. And, maybe don't be a fucking Nazi.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
There's that.
So the night toxin, or night witches, being named for their swishing plain sound is so cool, but also the fact that like the 588th Bomber Regiment was like one of the most prestigious of regiments because of how successful they were. And Raskovich doing all of this work to try and get this off the ground, to train these people, and to know that it was people that were trained alongside of her already in flight school. And, to sit there and be like, we want to get involved in the war effort, but we want to get involved in the war effort and actually make a difference and make an impact. And boy, did they make an impact. I think, when I think about just the way the world is now, I couldn't imagine an all women bomber group getting credit without it being a look what they're doing kind of thing, as in like, yeah, see, we got women doing this thing, and almost like a publicity thing, as opposed to this where it was a necessity thing. And, I'm curious, as our female voice on the show, like, what do you think? Do you think that is how it would go now, where it would be more of a publicity, like, get eyes on us and raise some money to get the war effort going? Or,
well, 100%, because think back to the culture of that time. Women were viewed very differently. Women had very limited roles that they could serve to contribute to the mission of the war, regardless as to what country you're coming from. But if this same effort were to like be done in today's day and age, look at that dumbass fucking space flight that just happened a couple months ago, where fucking Katy Perry's beat bopping around, and they did like billionaire space tourism. Like, it would essentially be the Marvel version of feminism, or like DEI hire, not taken seriously type of rhetoric around it, where it's shoved down your throats, go women, kind of thing. And it's not actually, it's undermining the character and the integrity of the women that are contributing to that specific aspect of the mission. Just blue sky, that fuck ass space mission, whatever.
Yeah.
The designer form-fitting flight suits, to the publicity, the giant peacocking and the show and the drama of it all. If I was an actual spaceflight engineer, like woman working for NASA, actually contributing to the mission of NASA, I would just point and laugh at that and be like, all right, well, the mission continues anyways. I have to imagine that some of what was going on with that, it's like, at that point in time, it's literally World War. The only thing that matters is the mission and the completion of the mission, the furtherance of the mission. At that point in time, everybody was trying not to allow the Germans and the fucking Nazis to take over the entire fucking world. At that point, I'm sure that was something that everyone was fearful of. So I think it's also just a testament to, regardless of gender, you have a true warrior mentality. Something that I see in actual legitimate warriors who are like, I don't give a fuck about the interviews. I don't give a shit about writing a book about my experience. Mm-hmm. I want to quietly serve, know that I've lived a life of service to others, and retire peacefully into the night. Yep. You
know? So you mentioned the flight suits, the tailor-fitted flight suits and all that stuff. And I think that is important to note that these women did have hand-me-down flight suits and things like that, often boots that didn't necessarily fit or were really cold, so they would stuff things inside the boots to try and stay warm while also not adding a ton of weight. One thing that they also did, and this is where the boss babe comes back around, they would stitch flowers onto their flight suits to show some femininity, but also to show the men that they could do the job and not lose sight of who they were or their femininity. And I think that shit is just like an extra, like, you look over and it's like, this chick's got fucking like roses sewn to her flight suit. Are you kidding me? And then you get up there and then they come back and they've got more kills than you. And then you're like, oh.
I immediately recall a heated argument that I got into with my dad once upon a time. Army vet. This was back during Orange Man's first chunk of presidency, where he and other Republicans were talking about banning transgender soldiers. And I immediately was like, I don't give a fuck what you identify as. If you want to help complete the mission, you should be allowed to do that. And his old ass mentality, army vet mentality, was the military is not a social experiment. We should not be compromising the integrity of this decades-long, century-long, historic organization that a lot of men have worked their way through the ranks and, made something of themselves. It's not a social experiment. We should not be compromising the personal integrity of this rich, history-rich organization so that, gender-affirming care is integrated into fucking, healthcare. Yeah. I totally believe that flowers on flight suits, there's got to be some old heads that were pissed off about that. Like, that's not up to code. That's not up to policy. The military is not a social experiment. We should not be compromising the integrity. But also, it's World War. Fuck out of here with your uniform mandates.
Adding some levity to the situation, the women would also, while waiting for missions or waiting for the next thing, would also dance with each other and hang out on the runway or in their hangars and just enjoy the company of one another. And I think that that's awesome because it could be like doom and gloom all the time. Mm-hmm. And they flew at night. So a lot of them were probably sleeping during the day. So like to have some sort of levity in a terrible situation, probably low food rations. It was Russia at that time, cold, there's just so many little things like that give me. And we're moving to the part of this where now we're going to talk about some of the specific boss babe shit that some of these women did. So like I already talked about, like the German men feared them so much that they named them the Night Witch. And these women all got so many top honors and medals in service to their country that like I started to list them and I was like, I can't, there's too many. And all of them in some way served to the point where they got a medal for something simply because of how successful they were. And I think that that's fucking crazy. So like, that's like off the break for boss babe stuff. A pilot known as the most beautiful was also one of the most deadly. She lied to get into the program, said she was, I'm assuming, a different age. I couldn't find out what she lied about specifically, but I assume it was her age. It didn't get discovered that she lied on the application until she had proven herself as one of the best. So at that point, they were like, I guess we're keeping her. She downed a plane in a dogfight, and the male pilot that she downed, at some point in time they met up. I don't remember where it was or what the context was, but he refused to believe that she was the pilot that shot him down until she recounted all of the maneuvers used in taking him down as they happened in this dogfight. So he could not. So like legit, like what? She also holds one of the records at the time. I don't know if it just says record, so I don't know if it was like for women or if it was for like Russia. Like I don't know what the record is, but for possibly most confirmed kills.
Hell yeah.
She was possibly also the first real ace pilot, which is 5+ kills in aerial combat. That like right? Fuck. And also was the most beautiful.
Dude, listen, I can't imagine that there's too many fucking Hollywood producers that are listening to our podcast, but Jesus Christ, can you stop doing like 70s, 80s movies, remakes with,
right?
Radical recasting so that you can make news headlines with just like recasting or whatever, and do a bomb ass fucking like a Dunkirk level movie about the Night Witches. Like, come on.
Like I said, I fell down a fucking rabbit hole because it was just like fact after fact after fact. So much stuff that like was just like, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's really cool. I should be taking notes because I want to do this as an episode. Because it was just like, fuck, man. Like, and all of this again, like I said, sparked from a generic. I sent you the picture. Does that picture not look kind of like maybe it's AI generated? Maybe this is a real thing. I can't tell. Like, so legit. I definitely recommend, doing some research on the Night Witches and the, just who these women were, but what they also accomplished is like freaking crazy to me. So how do you top that story I just told you about that the most beautiful pilot? What do you think? What do you think the next one? Just like wild guess. What do you think she did?
I hope she's a mother.
Yeah, right. So a lot of them were mothers, but so this pilot performed in illegal or like I don't want to say outlawed, whatever. Like they deemed it illegal and war standards aerobatic maneuver. So she was to be placed under arrest. While waiting to be placed under the arrest for this maneuver, she successfully defended the base after it was attacked by bombers. So they dropped the charges.
Good for her. She's like, oh, that's some Top Gun shit. It literally sounds like Top Gun.
Right? Fucking crazy. Like, what? What? Like, legit. That one gets me. It's just like, of course you did. Was like, if I'm not under arrest right now, so I'm going to get in my fucking plane because this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not here for the dumb shit. I'm here to battle this machine coming at me. And I fucking love it.
Holy shit. That's literally like, yes. And I wish I want to know more about the specific maneuver because I don't know too much. I don't know too much about tactical, fighter jet maneuvers, or even in today's day and age, if that's even still a thing that exists of like when you're in wartime and on international, airspace, these are specific maneuvers that you cannot do. That's completely out of my depth. But like, yes, of course. Defend the base. The same people that were going to charge you for violating you know, whatever fuck ass rule that you violated by doing an illegal air maneuver, probably still killing the enemy.
Yeah.
And then coming back home to defend them. That, like, we need a new elite level of boss babe. Like that, like boss babe.
Right.
I think it doesn't really touch on the insanity of these women.
And,
holy shit.
Like the thing is that like gets me, and I have one more like super, like, how do I top that one? Right. I have one more, like, I didn't even write like the full note. I just wrote this because it's like a mic drop kind of situation. But this is Russia. This was Soviet Russia. Some of them were communists. Some of them held different views, and they didn't let that get in the way, even though it did get in the way as far as Stalin letting them do things and not. And he had issue with some of it, but at the same time, they were doing what they needed to do. And ultimately, it was still them getting these commendations for executing these missions and serving with, you know, such pride in their country. And I think that that's worth noting, that like in those times where you wouldn't normally see somebody like turn the other cheek towards politics, especially a world leader like that, that's what was happening in order to successfully, you know, accomplish the mission. And I think that that is worth noting. So my last like boss babe stuff note, you're flying back, you touch down on the runway, the mechanic looks at your plane, starts counting the holes, and there are 40 fucking 2 holes in your plane, your canvas plane that easily could rip. These women would plug the hole with their finger if necessary to make it back.
Holy
they
shit,
would patch
dude.
the plane in the air, doing all sorts of extra things to make it back so that they could patch it up and go back out.
They had huge fucking sets. Oh my God.
On their chest.
Yeah, on their chest. I can't even fathom that.
Legit.
I can't even fathom that.
I 42 holes in a plane coming back. A random side note, because again, this is kind of my bag. There was, I wish I could remember his name, and of course it escapes me at this moment, because otherwise I always remember his name because it's such a cool fact. In World War II, they were trying to figure out how to make the planes lighter while also giving them more armor, and they were examining the planes that came back to see whether or not this place needed armor or that place. So they were studying those planes that made it back. And this scientist said, we shouldn't be studying the planes that make it back. We should be studying the planes that do not make it back in order to figure out where we need the armor, because those are the planes that are being downed. And that's what ultimately led to armor around specific personnel, like areas and engines or whatever. And I just think it's that outside of the box thinking or contrarian thinking that would often be like scoffed at, but ultimately made the biggest difference. And these women were very much that. And I think that World War II was just such a like an interesting way of like being. I don't know, I don't want to call it like a time period, but like a way of being where it stopped being about this, it stopped being about that. While racism did still exist, there were a lot of people that were like, if this person is, you know, willing to do this for us here, then back home, I don't have a fucking problem with them. And I grew up hearing stories from older relatives about things like that. And I just think it's so fucking crazy that at this time, like Russian women had more freedoms than other people. Like that just like sticks with me. What is one of the things that you learned today that that might stick with you, or that like is still bouncing around in your brain?
With the out of the box thinking to address problems and stick your finger in a fucking bullet hole and make sure your plane makes it home. It's historically in in these male dominated fields, and especially in the military, it's a ask no questions, fall into line, do like, you know, follow fucking orders and don't question authority.
Yeah.
So it's a level of think outside the box, but also have the set to elbow your way into those conversations to make sure that you are heard. It is one thing to have an outside of the box approach to a problem, but inside those systems where marginalized or, you know, underrepresented community members are not taken as seriously, it's one thing to have an out of the box creative solution to a problem. It's another thing to physically elbow your way into those fucking conversations and make sure that your out of the box solution is actually heard in the first place. So it's I mean, I don't know what book you're about to drop, but I think I might have to buy me a copy.
Yeah. So perfect. I was looking it up right now. The book that I really like, and there's like I said, I think I saw like 14 different books. This is the one that like stuck out to me the most, and I enjoyed, and it was like, it wasn't, I don't want to say dry, because this is kind of something that could be like textbooky.
Mm-hmm.
It was just matter of fact, and it worked for me. The Night Witches of World War II, the inspiring true story of the female Russian bomber pilots who helped win the war against the Nazis. And that's by Graham Derrickson. And like I said, I think that when it comes to topics like this, I'm glad that we got to do it. I'm glad that you were like jazzed about it. I'm glad that like it's just a thing that like I happen to stumble upon, and there's so much information in this book and so many things, like I said, that from their inception to what they went through to what they did and all of the facts. The last like maybe I'm gonna say eighth to like quarter of it is just running down the facts about so many of the women and the things that they did and the commendations that they got and what they did after the war, and you know, just their life in general. And I think that is worth note. I only listed off the two with Raskova and Raskovich, because those were two of the most prominent women that created this and led these groups. But that's not to say that any of the women that fought with the 586th, the 587th, or the 588th don't deserve like a little bit of spotlight. And again, like you said, I think this is one of those like definitely like I would watch a movie about this because it would be fucking cool. So like
100%. Holy shit.
Yeah, like I think it would be cool. So I don't know, like we educated me on a bunch of TikTok things. How does this stack up? Do you feel like you got educated on some things?
Yo, this is way more interesting than any of those fuck ass TikTok trends I tell you about. This was yeah, I am interested in homies. If you know of any other like infantry, I don't even know the words. Infantry. If there's any other group of women who were out murking people and just being, we need a new elite level, a new elite yeah. phrase other than boss babes. Yes. Please let us know, because this is, there's several topics and episodes that we have where it's like very divine timing that you bring it up or I bring it up and then we have a conversation about it. I'm like, yeah, I needed to hear that. I needed to hear this week. This is one of them. So I think just in the climate of our nation today, that maybe we could all learn a thing or two about persistence, resilience, and completing the mission in creative ways. Because holy shit, this was awesome. Thank you so much, Matt, for all your research.
To piggyback off of what you just said, on purpose, I'm wearing a shirt that says "Iron sharpens iron," and it's like a shirt that I happened to see my mom wear, and I was like, I fucking want it. So she got me the shirt. And if you know, if nothing else, like you said, the story of resilience and perseverance in the face of stupidity even is the name of the game. And This week I've had some creative friends feel like they've hit a wall and stumble, and it reminds me that, like, even as creatives, we have no choice but to push forward, because it's what we are, and not who we are, but what we are. And it's like you said, divine timing. But again, if you listen to this book, if you read this book, however you consume it, I guarantee you'll be inspired, and it just be like, God damn, they were fucking awesome. So one more time for the Night Witches, thanks for listening.
Bye, homies.
The bell is about to ring. If you want to drop us a voice message or simply ask a question, you can do that by clicking the link in the show notes below. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review. It helps more people find us. Theme music by Kinsey. More music available on Spotify. Remember, every day is a class. Go learn something.